Raise a cup. It's TPS 16, the Protagonist show, where Josh Duder and I talk about all the things going on in our corner of the soccer world. Joshua Duder, welcome to the show, my man.
Good to be back. Let's do it.
Let's do it. If you're watching, thanks for watching. If you're listening, you could be watching. Just check out the Protagonist Soccer YouTube page. That's where we air these episodes. If you don't want to listen to us, if you'd rather look at our beautiful faces instead. But let's talk about the beautiful faces of the U.S. men's national team, who tonight, of the time of recording, played Ecuador and Austin, played to a 1-1 draw. Valencia scored the 24th minute for Ecuador, and I'll be transparent in saying I was frustrated by the goal. We'll get into that in just a second. And then we got an equalizer from Florian Balogun in the 71st minute with an assist from Malik Tillman. So all things, I guess, end well in a 1-1 draw. I guess it is what it is. It was interesting to see the lineup. The lineup started with some of the faces that we expect to see at the World Cup next year, and then some were on the bench, and some of them weren't called in. Freeze in goal, Robinson, Richards, Ream in the back, Weah, Tessman, Morris, Arfston, McKinney, Balogun, and Tillman. Big names on the bench that you might be surprised to see on the bench. Someone like Christian Pulisic. But it is what it is. I suspect he did come in as a sub later on in the match. But it was an entertaining game. There were moments of brightness for the U.S. men's national team. But there were also plenty of, I think, reasons to be a little bit concerned in our defense. Ecuador felt like they were threatening and also playing a little rougher, I think, than we were expecting for a friendly. But I guess I enjoyed the match, if that helps any at all. I would have liked to have seen. I felt like Balogun was very sharp up top. He did get the goal. It was kind of a gritty goal where he kind of forced his way past the player, got his foot in, and got the ball into the net after going off the post to beat the keeper. Ecuador's keeper was very good. So Balogun was sharp, and I think it would have been nice to see Pulisic in tandem with him up there up front. Pulisic's been playing really well for AC Milan. Maybe the best player on that team, maybe the best player playing in Serie A right now, at least as far as his hotness and sharpness right now. And it would have been nice to see them interact a little bit more. Unfortunately, by the time he got in, they were doing a lot of subs, and eventually Balogun came out for Haji Wright. So there you go. Josh Duder, I know that you're not quite the U.S. men's national team fan that I am. Sure. Did you watch any of this? Did you keep track of it?
It does leave me with some questions for sure, even though I don't watch the whole match. I do notice the lineup, and I look at some of those players that are out there. And so it makes me wonder, should Haji Wright have started? I feel like right now in the last 2-3 years, we've sort of seen some different names arise at that number 9 position. I think Josh Sargent missing is interesting. I know people were really high on him for a couple years. And now we've got Haji Wright doing really well in the English championship. I think with, Coventry. Thank you so much. But is it Enyemang?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and he's doing well, though. He's doing well on his own accord out there with Derby County. And so it is a British team. So we do say Derby in that kind.
In that case, yes.
So in your opinion, like, were we right to see the number, Balogun start up top tonight? Do you think that may change on Tuesday? And I mean, it's a long ways to summer, but do we have the right 3 sort of in rotation here?
So let's start at the player that I don't think really has stepped up that much, which is Josh Sargent. Looks very good in championship playing for Norwich. But I think there was rumors that he was going to potentially move to Europe to play in Germany again, where he sort of got his start in international football, but that's not actually correct. I mean, in a league that is not in the United States.
Right.
And so I think declined that because he has hopes of going into the Premier League. And he's played well enough that he might get potentially have an opportunity with a low-level club in the Premier League. But the problem with Josh Sargent is he's a consistent underachiever for the United States. Every time he has put on the colors, he just hasn't really delivered. And Pochettino has stressed that, well, I will not say that he is stressed. He has indicated, and then it has reflected in his lineups, that he likes players who play well when they put on the colors and play in front of him. He likes players that perform in practice. He clearly is creating a core of his guys, which somehow includes Christian Roldan, which is a weird one to me because I thought he was out of the fold. But anyway, Sargent just hasn't really performed yet. He's a great player at Championship, played very well for Norwich, and I'm not saying he's done. I'm just saying, at least right now, he doesn't appear to be in the top 3 right now. Haji Wright is not a traditional striker, and he doesn't play as a striker for Coventry. He plays up and out in sort of a front 3, and so because of that, when we have wedged him into that striker spot, it feels like he doesn't perform as well as he would. Unfortunately, on our team, those people that play that out wide are Christian Pulisic, again, arguably a player the hottest in Serie A right now and playing fantastically, and is also a great player for obviously the United States, and is already moving up the goal chart. So he's not going to play out that side. And on the other side, we typically have, if it's a Malik Tillman, if it's a Timothy Weah, if it's Weston McKennie, usually there's another player on that other side taking that space. And so Haji gets pushed into that front role. It's just not really a role that he's excelled at as of yet for the United States. And it's just, again, it's not a role he plays for Coventry. The only other player I would really want to include in this conversation, I don't know that I would include Ajimang. I think he's below Sargent, is Ricardo Pepi, who's currently injured, who plays for PSV Eindhoven in the Eredivisie, and is a very consistent scorer for the United States. He's the kind of player that everyone complains about because he's not flashy, but he is a grinder and has just consistently scored goals for the United States. He comes in, he scores goals. If you bring him in as a starter, he'll try to score a goal. If you bring him in as a sub, he'll try to score a goal. He finds ways to score. Maybe not the prettiest player in the world, but he does score goals. And he's a personal favorite of mine, El Paso. So, of course, I love him. Yes. But all that aside, Florian Balogun is probably in his best form coming back from injury right now. And I think he is clearly the starting striker for the United States currently, scored. And I think this is his second goal in 2 games for the United States. I think I heard them say it tonight. So, I mean, there's every reason to love his play and his drive, and he has looked very, very. He was very dangerous all night. There were just, I kept expecting him to score, and when he finally did score, I was not surprised that it was him because of how he had played.
You speak about favorites, and I know Diego Luna was a favorite in the last international break. Over the summer, I think a lot of gained the attention and maybe the hearts and minds of a lot of Americans. I know certainly I'm going to order myself a Diego Luna U.S. men's national team jersey. I like him a lot. But he and Pulisic, as you mentioned, they started off on the bench, and so I'm just wondering, is Poch resting them? These games, for all intents and purposes, aren't important. But do you think Tuesday Poch is going to start them and bench a couple other players, and he's just seeing what combinations of players look good?
I think that's what we're talking about. I mean, you would hope, I think that, and I know I listen to several other podcasts, particularly Scuffed, talks about that this should be done already. This process of still trying to figure out who your lineup is heading into the World Cup. But Pochettino has gone slow on this and has continued to add players. And I think he's still working in combinations. McKennie wasn't in the last camp. He's in this camp. So I think that there's still some debate. I would say that Diego Luna, because of the quality of the rest of the players that are on that roster, is always going to be, just like Roldan, probably low down in the roster number if it's, a 24th or a 25th person going onto that roster, because there are other players that are playing in bigger leagues and shining brighter, and that's going to create, issues for him. On the other hand, he has those intangibles that we've talked about, extensively on this show and on other shows, that he brings a level of aggression and energy that sometimes other players seem to be lacking. And I think Pochettino appreciates that. And so because of that, I think he will be included. I think he will make the World Cup roster. But yeah, I think this is just a matter of continued rotation and trying to find which players are going to make the most sense as they move towards the World Cup. We do get another match from this U.S. men's national team window. That's going to be on Tuesday, where they'll take on Australia. Again, I think that when you're looking at these friendlies, there's lessons you can take, and you have to take everything with a grain of salt, because you don't know how much rotation is going on in those other teams and what they're working on. That happened when we played South Korea, and they were on the they had excuse me, not South Korea, Japan. And we had lost to South Korea, and then we played Japan, and Japan rotated their entire roster from after playing L3, and so we beat up on them, and it was like, boy, we must be good. But the reality is that we're playing against their backups.
Yeah.
And for them, they're doing the same things. Like, yes, I see these things through a U.S. men's national team colored glasses, but the reality is that other teams are doing the exact same thing. They're traveling, they're rotating their rosters, they're looking at their players, and sure, they would love to get a win and, black the eye of the host team. But the reality is that, the lessons that you can take out of a match may be more important than the end result, particularly when it comes to a friendly. So I think that's what's going on. But it's this year has been really weird since we're hosting, and the lack of qualifying pressure is I'll be transparent in saying I think there's a bit of relief knowing we're going to be in, but it's also a bit of like, yeah, but we didn't do anything to earn it.
Right.
So it is what it is.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we've already, here's a question that I have for you. If we've already qualified, shouldn't they, I mean, these games were at Q2 tonight, and then we got Dick's Sporting Goods next Tuesday. So if we've already qualified, shouldn't they be scheduling these games at venues they might actually play in next summer? Do you think like this might be a wasted opportunity to create a sense of familiarity with those playing surfaces?
Well, Josh, you and I both know that the U.S. men's national team has been shown to struggle to fill stadiums, particularly the large ones that we're going to see in the World Cup. And if you're playing in a 60,000 or a 70,000 seat stadium and you can only fill 20,000 of those seats.
But like if you cut the ticket prices to like $5 and fill the thing up to simulate a full stadium feeling, and these coaches keep asking, why don't the fans show up? I mean, it's a warm-up game. Cut a deal.
Well, I think there's a lot of competing ideas about that. Certainly, I've talked to people at US Soccer before about that idea of like, why don't y'all cut the ticket prices? And the argument that comes back is if you make it too cheap, then it cheapens what they hope is like the gravitas around a national team playing. And by the way, I don't know that that's the driving force opinion of U.S. Soccer. That is one opinion.
Person who spoke
yes. I just want to be 100% clear on that. Yeah. But I think that there's been competitive ideas about that. I will say that this match at Q2, I don't know what is Q2 seat. I don't know what the
that's in Austin. It's probably like 25,000. I think that's kind of the MLS standard.
20,000. So 20,000. I will say it was pretty full by the end of the match. I thought it drew pretty well. I don't know. There were a lot of Ecuadorian fans there. You definitely could see that.
I mean, Austin.
Yeah. But
closer.
Well, I mean, relatively, I guess, to Ecuador than
more so than Minnesota, I guess.
Yeah, fair,
I guess.
Fair. You know what? And I have no idea where the Ecuadorian communities are in the United States. I don't know.
No,
but
fair. Yeah.
But what I will say is that I think that there's always going to be a balancing act being played between what makes the most sense, like visually on TV, how many seats can you actually sell? You know, we do very well when we play in Ohio, when we play in Columbus. That's always been a good place for draws. Not for draw for the draw, not for draws.
Right.
Austin has so far shown itself to fill that stadium pretty consistently for the United States. I think that is part of what's going on there. I hear what you're saying, and I would say that in the end, we're not the ones making the decisions. We're the ones trying to explain them.
Absolutely. You know, we are talking about U.S. Soccer on one end. They are a multifaceted organization, and they also run one of my very favorite programs. That's the U.S. Open Cup. And well, they just wrapped up the 2025 final a week or two ago. The 2026 is well underway. We spoke about the first qualifying round matches the last time we got together. We are getting set for the second round of qualifying matches. It kicks off this weekend. We dropped a quick list of the second round qualifying matches, and there are 59. So, Dan, you and I are not going to read them all off. But however, there are 44 teams entered into qualifying in round one. Only 22 moved on. That's math. 96 teams who had round one bye joined up this week. So we have 59 teams left. We will have 59 teams left after Sunday night. 5 more teams will join for a third qualifying round: Ballard, Brockton, City Soccer, Laguna United, and UDA. So listen, I'm not really sure how those were determined. I know Ballard were runners-up in the USL League 2 to Vermont Green. They qualified for the first round proper, right? So Ballard maybe have a little bit of the way paved for them. Dan, I put the list out there. Did any of these games stand out to you? Did you want to give any of your favorite teams a shout?
You know, I don't want to steal anyone's thunder, and I'm not trying to I am privy to the notes that are here, but I think that the match that stands out to anyone that's sort of followed lower league soccer over the last couple of years, and in this case, I know the principal operators at both of these clubs.
Yeah.
Tulsa and Denton is such a fun matchup because of the two guys that run it. Damon Gochner for Denton is just this larger than life character. He and I have podcasted about the U.S. men's national team in the past. Sonny D'Alessandro, who runs Tulsa Athletic, also larger than life character. He's freaking hilarious. Also a great disc golf player. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Sonny?
Yeah.
I know that I want to go to his restaurant, but now I want to go eat Italian food and go disc golfing.
He is apparently ranked in nationally for his disc golf. Yeah. So I think that seeing Tulsa Athletic play the Denton Diablos is fun. It's the kind of matchup that you get to see, I think, from multiple lenses. These are teams that play in 2 different leagues. They have sort of different formation stories, where they come from, but in the end, it's super fun because they've also been, sister clubs in even when Tulsa was going through its challenges with the NPSL. Denton went and played a charity match to help raise money for them. So there's a lot of reasons to love this matchup, and it's part of the U.S. Open Cup matchup, the whole process that you get these matchups, that they're fun. And so I think it's pretty cool. And I thought it was cool too that today, that article that you mentioned, we had multiple of our contributors, people that have worked with us in the past, sort of offer their favorite matches that are coming up. You can check that out at protagonistsoccer.com. Friend of Protagonist, Mike Batista, who writes in the Northeast, FC Monmouth versus Bulldogs, and then John Howard Fusco, who I podcast with on a weekly basis.
He's a good friend.
He highlighted VE. I don't try to say that name. I just say VE versus Colonial SC, and also Oakland United and Scots American Athletic. But I think that getting the cool thing about the US Open Cup matches, you get these matches across the whole country. And so all these names that have been core to the development of soccer, or maybe brand new, we talked about Sharktopus, you're wearing their jersey. But they may be just brand new in the scene. They're having an impact on the development of soccer, and the Open Cup is really about that. I guess I'll turn that question around and ask you, anything stand out to you that you're interested in?
I mean, I gave Tulsa Athletic and Denton a shout, of course. I like that they had played in the 2021 NPSL final, and Denton got the better of Tulsa 5-2. That was a home game for Denton, and I know that they've both gone their own way. So Tulsa has gone on to the League for Clubs as a founding member of the League for Clubs, and Denton Diablos have moved on to USL League 2, where they did not qualify for the Open Cup, but both teams are going to scrap and fight to get to that first round proper. It's just a shame, Dan, that we can't have both of them make it. It has to come down to this. So we may enjoy this game, but I am not going to celebrate a result either way. Napa Valley 1839 FC, another founding member of the League for Clubs, is hosting FC Folsom. They run into each other in NorCal soccer circles. They played each other in the UPSL NorCal Conference semifinal, and I think it was Folsom. Folsom went on to advance to the UPSL finals last fall, so a year ago. And then Sharktopus, of course, I wore the shirt in honor of Sharktopus. They play in like a city league in Seattle. The squad that they're bringing, they played in UPSL a year ago, but they've stepped back down into the city league for Seattle. And they're playing Bellevue United. Bellevue are playing out of UPSL. And those two have also sort of done a little bit of battle against each other locally. So both of those games are local battles. And I found that so interesting. As you mentioned, we get games all across the country, but we get these little local duels to begin with, and that's really interesting to me.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the beauty of the cup. Let's be real. I mean, it's the best time of the year, and it's awesome that as one cup wraps up and immediately turns around and starts another cup. And there's plenty of other cups to talk about too.
Cups. I wrote that.
You did.
Today, Dan, NISA announced that its 2025 Pro Cup starts on Monday in Michigan. 8 of the nation's top independent soccer teams have been split into 2 groups, with 4 advancing to the semifinals on Sunday, October 19th, before 2 rise to the Championship Cup final on Tuesday, October 21st. That's my birthday. Arkansas Wolves FC, Capo FC, DC Hyper, Los Angeles Force, a familiar name, Modesto City FC, Northern Colorado Hailstorm. That's a fascinating story, and we'll get into that again a little bit another day. Peak 11 FC and Sin City FC, that rounds out the competition. So, Dan, with Major League Soccer having their Leagues Cup, I believe Seattle won that, the winningest team, I think, in Major League Soccer history. USL having its Jägermeister Cup, which was won by Hartford just last weekend, so congrats to them. And the US Open Cup final recently having been won by, I think it was Nashville.
I think so.
Okay. Does NISA's Cup, I mean, we were hype on this years ago, right? Does this cup serve a purpose? And this isn't to tear down NISA, right? As we've spoken about, hey, this is an opportunity for them to sort of like recapture some light, to do some good things, to regain good word of mouth. You said you'll believe it when you see it, but does this cup serve a purpose?
So when they're calling this the NISA Pro Cup.
Okay.
Well, the hype that we used to give was the NISA Independent Cup, which was a much larger nationally based experience with, I think, 9 or sometimes 10 different divisions, groups, like 3 or 4 clubs that would all play each other. I love that cup idea. It was cool. And not only, and it was cool the first year, especially because they actually like sought out teams from other leagues actively, so that you got these cool mixes of like a NISA professional club, a UPSL side, an NPSL side, an independent operator. Like that's cool. That's the kind of thing that sets it apart as very different from a lot of these other cups, which tend to be contained within the league that's hosting them or throwing them. So I love the Independent Cup. I mean, you know, Dan and John and I, when we were doing nights, we would spend hours both writing and talking about it. We were big fans of the Independent Cup. This is not the Independent Cup. This is the Pro Cup. And I assume what you wrote there probably came from a website because it says the nation's top independent clubs.
That was copied and pasted directly out of NISA's media announcement.
Listen, I'm in no way insulting you, sir, but I question what makes them a top independent club. These teams are.
There's some good ones. There's some good ones.
Listen, I have such a hard. I know that you said I'm not supposed to tear down NISA here. I don't. I like, you could put lipstick on a pig, it still makes it a pig. It's very pretty pig, and we appreciate that. Some of these clubs have certainly, they've got track records, they've played well in multiple leagues, but this is a weird Frankenstein Cup that I don't see why anyone would pay attention to it at all. And like I said before, if you deliver something great at that point, maybe we can acknowledge it. But so far, I am not seeing anything great from NISA. I've only seen promises and very little to follow up with it.
Okay. So at the very least, I see this as an opportunity for these aforementioned teams, all of which I have heard of before, none of which I would take any time to tear down.
I have never heard of DC Hyper, ever.
Okay. Fair.
No, I'm not.
Most of which I've heard of before.
There are several in here I have heard of 100%.
Absolutely. And
well, you know what breaks my heart, Josh, and in no way am I know I'm not trying to derail this. I'll try to make this a quick caveat.
No problem.
It is sad to me, again, as a person that invested hours and hours covering the league that was NISA, that one team on this list played whenever we covered, and that's LA Force. Every other club is either gone to another league or dead, and that is a testament to the lack of commitment to club stability that NISA had consistently shown. And in the end, like, that's what bums me out about NISA, the promise of what could have been but hasn't been and probably never will be.
Fair.
But yes, but shout out to these clubs, and
shout out to these clubs. So, so this is a chance for them to shine a little bit. And bear with me, I'm going to ask you to dig into your brain housing group a little bit to see if you can recall the name, because I know they exist. There's a name of amateur cups out there, but what other opportunities do amateur teams have to flex a little bit? I know we have the Open Cup, but like the USASA regional cups, isn't there a national amateur cup? We haven't done the best job covering that particular cup.
The amateur cup, no, we have covered the USASA pretty well. I mean, I know we sent it. I won't say that we covered the qualification well, but we covered the final pretty well.
Yeah.
A lot of the older leagues have cool cups within them. I'm thinking specifically of the Wood Cup in Buffalo District Soccer League. That's a cool one. But you're right. Like, there aren't a lot of opportunities for, and here's why. Because national competitions require travel, and that's the one thing that amateur clubs simply can't afford. It's why they end up playing in local leagues, because you need to be able to keep it local whenever you travel, so that you're not traveling so far. And so when you do a big national cup, that's very taxing on your resources. There are clubs that have to do fundraisers before each round of the Open Cup when they're playing. That's no insult to those teams. It's because there's just limited means.
That's a part of the process. And you see the teams that come out of that process and do very well for themselves, like El Farolito, who it has paid out for them to invest in themselves that way. But also, they love it. Yeah,
but I am sure they have had to invest.
There's been
serious amounts of money to do that, and I would say that there have been years when they aren't the furthest finishing amateur team, and there is no payoff for them.
Yeah,
and then it becomes a matter of
cost,
and expense. You got to eat it, and I think I love these cup competitions, but I think it would be fun if you could create. I think of a situation like Laredo Heat. They have a very cool soccer stadium facility that they built out last year. I visited it, thought it was very awesome and interesting and neat. It would be cool for Laredo to host, and the owner of Laredo Heat owns motels in Laredo. It would be so cool if they hosted a soccer tournament for a weekend where they brought in and called it the Texas Cup or something, and brought in 8 Texas teams, and he hosted them in his hotels, and over the course of a week they played down to a final and presented a cup. That would be incredible.
Yeah, I think that would be fun.
And he's got his own facility. He could do it. You know what I mean? Doesn't mean it wouldn't cost money, and who knows what kind of support we get. I totally understand all of the reasons why that might not happen, but I just think that there's like those kind of cups are also cool. And if you make them interesting and fun, you stream them, you do social media, you can build up things and make them interesting to the point that people buy in. And it becomes something cool. I know that there's plenty of cup competitions out there that we didn't mention, and you're like, Dan, Josh,
someone's yelling at us. Yeah.
Why didn't you mention that? But if you can think of better ones, shout out to us on social media. We'd love to hear from you, Protagonist.
Maybe we'll announce them in the next show. Yeah,
absolutely. And if there's a glowing one that we're like, oh man, we definitely missed that, I'll make sure to mention it next week.
Fair. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I was going to say, Dan, we've gone through all the cups and we've mentioned the qualifying matches that'll be this weekend. And I was just kind of curious of all the soccer on offer, what you might be getting stuck into. What's your viewing recommendation, sir?
You know me, buddy. I podcast significantly about the USL Super League with our Super Show podcast that's on our Protagonist podcast feed. And Spokane Zephyr is playing Dallas Trinity. This is an interesting matchup. Spokane has been a much more competitive team than we expected, considering all the losses of some of their best players in the offseason. They've done well, and they just added a new coach, Nicole Lukic, who we interviewed for Protagonist Soccer. You might remember this.
I know her
from Minnesota Aurora.
She's fantastic.
She is fantastic, absolutely. And she just got named the coach of Spokane, which I think is rad. I think that is such a cool thing to be part of USLW, a great organization, and then get an opportunity at a professional organization in the Super League. I think it's cool. I mean, some might say that Aurora already is a professional organization.
They're very close.
They certainly operate like one. But Dallas Trinity also has played well, but has struggled in their last couple of games. So I'm kind of curious to see how this goes. And now I ask you, sir, what are you watching?
Listen, I love me some USL League One. I think it's the wackiest and most entertaining professional league in our country. USL League One has just 3 weekends left in the regular season, and there are some critical matchups this weekend. One Knox beat Portland today, and they have leapfrogged both Chattanooga and Spokane to go into first place. So there are 2 games I'm going to keep an eye on this weekend. First is Ford Madison. They're hosting Chattanooga. The Mingos are just outside the playoff places with a win from their final home match this year that could propel them into the race for the postseason. Chattanooga held first place for most of the year and will be fighting to get that back, to get that first round bye and to fight for home field advantage. Tormenta is a great story. They've rattled off 6 wins in a row to fly up the table and are now looking to solidify that position. Last year's runners-up, Spokane, have had an overall good season, but they have been a little wobbly down the stretch right now with just 1 win from their last 5. I know my boy Benji's he's not happy about the wobble, but this is also their last home match to put on a good show for the great fans of Spokane. And so I would say if you guys can go sell out that stadium, go do that. They go on the road for the next 3 to finish off the season. So it's getting hot.
It's getting hot. Love it. Nothing better than watching a match where there's something on the line. That's for 100% sure. Excellent. Well, are we ready to go off topic?
Sure. We'll give it our best.
Listen, I am going to take the leadoff spot here. So stand in the on deck and swing that bat, like the one with the weight on the end, the donut. You know what I'm talking about? There you go. You know what's up. Excellent. Well, In all of the chaos that's happening in our country right now around immigration, about what makes a person an American, I think that the U.S. men's national team is such a great example of what can be when you open the doors to different kinds of people from all over the world and redefine what an American is. If you're a person that's born to an American father in a European country, you could still be an American. That's part of it. And I think when I see the U.S. colors on the flag, on the crest, it's what makes us the best. That's my opinion.
Awesome.
Yeah, some people don't feel that way.
Listen, I didn't overwrite mine this time. In fact, I'm going conceptual, all vibes. So let's see.
Well, Joshua Duder, who am I to argue with you? How about you do it?
Listen, Protagonist has been covering lower league soccer for a long time. Dan and I, in particular, have been covering it probably over a decade. One of our very favorite things to do on Protagonist is introduce all of our readers and listeners to teams that they might not have heard of before. We have run articles over the last few years about that. And if you want to get involved, we have a new series called Who Are Ya? And I want you to reach out to us at Protagonist, get your club in the queue, and let everybody know who you are and what league you're in.
Hey, that was pretty solid, Mr. Duder. I'm pretty proud of you. That was 30 seconds. You delivered it. We've got things to plug. Let me plug. Speaking of short run items, the t-shirt partnership that we did with Cow Car, Elliott Barr, and Olive in York to create a Hitty Derby t-shirt came out great. Absolutely fantastic. Check that out on the Olive and York website. I know that sales have been slow. Listen, I get it. Like, money's tight. Totally understand that. But it's a very reasonably priced thing. And I'll tell you, the work that was done on that and the thoughtfulness and the approach to it is, someday we'll write a book about it, because it was just something that, maybe not a book, maybe a chapter of a book. But it's the kind of thing that we literally thought through the process constantly to make sure that we did it the right way. But that's my plug.
Very fair. I want to plug a project that I've been working on for it's hit a year mark now, Dan. We have all material in on the first Protagonist magazine called The Zine. And it all goes to editing this weekend and then goes to print soon. There's probably still roughly 50 copies that have not been pre-sold. We are running a limited run on the first issue because we just don't want to overextend ourselves and see what this printing material process is like. But if you want to get your hands on the very first printed magazine done by Protagonist with multiple writers, and it's all about New York, from Albany to Syracuse to Utica City to New York City, club soccer, history, everything, go check out our website, look at our shop, and get yourself a pre-sale zine. They're going to print ASAP.
Yes, absolutely. The Protagonist shop, there's all kinds of ways to support us there. And if you really want to support us, if you really want to take the next step, we do have a Patreon, obviously, patreon.com/Protagonist Soccer. It's the most, I was going to say the most active way, but it's the most direct way that you can put money in our pockets and help us do what we do. It's how we've funded everything. I always look at some of the money that we end up spending out of pocket. We're covering the difference. Josh and I have not made a penny off of this operation. We joked about that the other day. That's okay. We're happy to do it. We love the game. But if you want to help us, our Patreon is there to help us. If you want to go to our shop, pick something up, that's also a way to help us. But it is, I know, like I said, times are tight, money's tight. We know that. It's tight for us too. So any way that you can help, find that dollar amount that works for you, and you're going to help us out. We super appreciate it. Well, that's it for this episode of TPS. Joshua Duder, TPS 16 in the books. How do you feel about it?
I think we did it. As we said we were going to do it, and we did it.
Absolutely love it. Thank you so much for listening to this or watching it, depending on how you consume this. If you do it one, why not try the other? They're all there. Regardless, thank you so much for your support. Have a great week in soccer. We'll see you soon.